Hello there, and welcome to the latest episode for the King Square Reviews, which is reviewing Cyberpunk Edgerunners episodes 7 and 8. If you have not watched my previous episodes regarding Cyberpunk Edgerunners, go ahead and do that now and check them out. They're in the playlist. Uh, Also, if you like my content, please hit that like and subscribe button. It will be greatly appreciated. Now, the life of a cyberpunk is to live on the edge between crashing into a burning wreck or experiencing massive success. And in the 7th and 8th episodes of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, we get to see David Martinez straddling that line after a time jump from the previous episode. Now a hardened edgerunner in his own right, David is waffling back and forth between success and catastrophe, and it's plain to see that he's losing his grip, but being that he is a stubborn bastard, he won't let go and change course. Now, obviously, spoilers are ahead, so if you have not watched episodes 7 and 8 of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, stop listening to me, go watch those, then come back and you can hear my thoughts and add your own in the comments. Episode 7 is titled Stronger, and it picks up sometime after the ending of Girl on Fire, and we're closer to 2077 at this point. I believe in the timeline this is taking place in 2076. David has become the leader of the crew, with Rebecca and Kiwi working alongside him, as well as Falco, who is the driver and wheelman of the group. David has grown up considerably in the time skip. In fact, he looks like a younger version of Maine, particularly with the grenade launcher arm implant that Maine left him shortly before the ending of Girl on Fire, where Maine and Dorio died, taking out Max Tech and Trauma Team. With Rebecca by his side as the mayhem-loving solo that she is, as well as Kiwi serving as the primary net runner, David's now capable of taking down an entire warehouse of Maelstrom gangbangers almost on his own, except for one that kind of gives him a run for his money, but not entirely. It's clear, though, from looking at David now versus in Girl on Fire, he's gone overboard with cyberware. He's taken Maine's approach to becoming a Night City legend, or at least attempting to, by loading up on as much cyberware as possible, which, given that David has a natural tolerance for having more cyberware in his system, it makes sense that he would do it, but he's starting to hit that upper limit. He's starting to get close to what Maine ran into with cyberpsychosis. And even David's old Ripper doc points this out to him when David's getting another procedure, and in the process, he mentions a Night City legend named Adam Smasher. And as Doc puts it, Smasher is a full Borg, aka a cyborg, which is obviously someone who's replaced pretty much every part of their body with cybernetics. And we get to see very brief glimpses of Adam Smasher in this episode, and he's terrifying, and rightly so. So, if there's any one character in the cyberpunk universe that can be considered a complete and total monster, it's Adam Smasher. This is someone who, even before becoming a cyborg, had very little regard for their humanity and reveled in causing as much carnage as possible, just for the sake of doing it. Now, given that Edgerunners is a prequel for Cyberpunk 2077, and, again, spoilers, Adam Smasher is one of the big bads of 2077, it's only natural that he would show up here in the anime. Now, segueing away from that, we soon get to see where Lucy's been and what Lucy's been up to. And she has not returned to the crew since the Tanaka job went south. Instead, because David's reputation and proficiency as a mercenary has grown substantially, the pair of them are living in a very fancy rooftop apartment, which, if you are a fan of 2077, you will recognize this is a domicile that V can gain in one of the endings, which lends itself to say, yeah, obviously things don't end well for David and Lucy. You can see, though, with David and Lucy in their relationship that there's some distance that has appeared now. David's not sleeping well. And every time Lucy tries to bring him around, he's very hesitant to give more of himself, despite the fact that he obviously loves her. And you can see that in the very quiet scene that the two of them have outside of Night City. The big reveals, though, for this episode are Lucy's backstory, where we get to see her upbringing as a child soldier for the Arasaka Corporation. Essentially, the Megacorp snatched up Lucy as a child, implanted her with some of the most cutting-edge cybernetics that were available at the time, which ensured that she could do deep dive net runs, and then set her loose to roam the old net. Now, obviously, those of you who are not familiar with the lore of the Cyberpunk TTRPG, some of this may not look very normal for you or really understandable. So Lucy and David do break it down a little bit more succinctly in their conversation, but I'm going to give you a little bit more detail. The data crash virus that's released by Raish Bartmoss, who was a genius-level netrunner from 50 years prior to the start of the anime and the series, destroyed the majority of cyberspace. Like, it still exists, but it is literally filled with roving artificial intelligences and demon programs that destroy anything they come into contact, including netrunners. So essentially, by this point, the old net has been partitioned away behind what's called the Black Wall. And for people like Lucy, they have the ability to slip past the Black Wall and to dive into the old net, which is something Arasaka and many of the other megacorps want to do, since there's a lot of data that was lost that they want to get back. And to say it's dangerous is nothing short of an overstatement. You can see that very quickly. Arasaka's rolling the dice here with this experiment because you can see some of the kids that are part of this program getting brain fried because they're being attacked by these AIs and demons. Lucy manages to escape, though, and she's been in hiding from Arasaka ever since then, which means so many of her interactions up to this point have been kind of under duress, and you can see the stress of it has finally caught up with her. I liked these scenes for a number of reasons, mainly because, getting the reveal of Lucy's backstory shows us, I should say, how much trust she has in David. To an extent, there's still stuff that she is hiding. And again, it's clear that the two of them love each other very much, but you have two directly opposite goals here. David is obsessed with living up to Maine's standard as an edge runner, whereas Lucy is still very much in her wanting to hide from Arasaka and protect David from Arasaka as much as possible. The gap only widens further, though, when we see that the fixer David has worked with extensively, named Faraday, comes back into the scene, and he's hiring David on behalf of Militech International, which is a megacorporation rival to Arasaka. So David's mission is to eliminate any personnel related to a cyber skeleton project that Arasaka is developing, something that would be considered a game changer in this Cold War that's been brewing between Arasaka and Militech since the end of what's called the Fourth Corporate War, which is, again, is backstory and history for the Cyberpunk universe. I'm not going to dive into it too much, but there's stuff I'll be putting out discussing this in the future, so you can check that stuff later. What David doesn't know is that the project for the cyber skeleton is what Tanaka wanted him to be a part of. And as soon as we learn that Arasaka has been hiring netrunners to piece together the data lost by Tanaka in his death, you also find out Lucy's been systematically hunting these netrunners down and executing them, because if they find out who David is because of his connection to Tanaka, Arasaka can get their clutches on David, and that's the one thing that Lucy doesn't want to see happen. Which leads into episode 8, which is titled Stay. Arasaka gets assaulted by David, or I should say one of their facilities gets assaulted by David, and he ends up killing one of their directors. In the process, he freezes up completely, and he kills one of the subordinates of the director, who was just a regular person trying to get home to celebrate her son getting into the Arasaka Academy. And that immediately takes David back to his own mother, Gloria, and how she worked herself to the bone trying to get him into Arasaka. This, I think, is the triggering moment for David to start experiencing cyberpsychosis. So it's a combination of the massive amounts of cybernetic implants that he has put into his body, but also this traumatizing moment of ending the life of someone who reminds him very much of his mother. That trigger just pushes him over the edge. You can start to see the tremors appearing in his hands, which you also see later. David was hallucinating during the entire time of that Arasaka raid. So it's a lot going on with him at this point. Even though he has a higher tolerance for cyberware, he's reached that upper limit, and at this point it's downhill from here for him. One of the unspoken rules for cyberpunk, both as a genre and particularly with the TTRPG, is you can't really trust anyone. And that shows even truer for Faraday. He ends up showing his true colors here. So Arasaka, who has been burned by the break-in that David just completed, as well as the murder of their Netrunners, puts out a hit on any fixers with ties to Militech, which of course Faraday is. He manages to escape unscathed, but because of this backlash, Militech refuses to fund him any further or provide him with any kind of protection until he's able to produce some kind of results that are in their favor. Instead of doing that, Faraday decides he's going to reach out to Arasaka and make an offer. And in the process, he receives a generous offer from Arasaka to find the Netrunner responsible for killing their people, which Faraday happily takes up because it's what he wants to do. He is trying to get himself away from street level and wants to become that sort of corpo executive who's above it all. Now, obviously, that's going to lead into our ending, but we're not quite there yet. So, throughout the episode, you do see Rebecca and Lucy trying to convince David that he is reaching the edge of his tolerance for cyberware. And David refuses to listen. This is one of his tragic flaws. He is too stubborn for his own good, and he wants to live up to Maine, and he has idolized Maine to the point that he forgets what happened with Maine. He forgets how things ended for Maine. He wants to live this glorious life and protect Lucy, and he wants to rise above the poverty that he lived in with his mother. He thinks he's special, and in a way he is, but at the same time, being special doesn't mean that he's immune to the rules and restrictions that everyone else has to experience. And this, unfortunately, is the first part of the strong dose of harsh reality that David's going to have to live with. The episode ends with Lucy finding out that another Netrunner is trying to reconstruct Tanaka's data. The fact that this happens during an argument with David about his cyberware only makes the divide between the two of them even worse. Unfortunately, though, it's a trap. Faraday has laid this out, and Lucy gets subdued in order to return her to Arasaka. It's a good cliffhanger because now we have the inevitable confrontation between David and Arasaka that's been brewing since the ending of episode 1. And as I've mentioned in my previous reviews up to this point, this is a cyberpunk story, and there's no such things as happy endings in cyberpunk. David, Lucy, and the rest of the crew are about to find out the hard way that there are no such things as living legends in Night City. There's only those who burn out in a bright and sometimes disastrous fashion. That's it for my review of episodes 7 and 8 for Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Once again, if you like my content here, please click the like and subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out the link tree in my bio. It is greatly appreciated if you would check out all of my stuff on the web, including my book series that is out there. Other than that, though, have yourselves a wonderful day. Thank you so much.